when something no longer serves you, it just becomes inconvenient. That is your cue that it's
Sure.
time to move.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Wisdom and Wellness. This month we are taking note of Mental Health Awareness Month, and we will be bringing a lot of awareness through conversations, even on our platform on Instagram and everywhere we possibly can. Not to put ourselves out there as experts, but to simply bring information so that we can recognize ourselves in everything that we do. And today we are in partnership with SOLAL, that is very invested in these mental health conversations. And I have my favorite. This is our second time we try to do this, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The first time we lost our footage, but I think, everything in good timing, everything happens for a reason. So I am sitting with trained psychologist Buyisile, who is practicing. We will share all her details, so that if you are looking for help, if you're looking to reach out, she's available. And I know she works with a network of incredible women who are there to support you. How are you?
I'm good. Always a pleasure.
Always a
Always
pleasure.
a pleasure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation we're going to have.
Before we even go in deeper, I know you have a is it an NGO that you do with a few ladies around psychology? I want you to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Buyisile Mental Health Associates is a group of 4 psychologists,
Yeah.
and we just come together and really focus on taking psychology beyond the room. That's basically our work. We are a community-oriented practice, so we do want to really start to engage individuals and people and spaces around mental health. So that's
Yeah.
basically what we do, yeah.
What does it mean to be taking psychology beyond the room?
So in our training, we always focus on the room. So where you typically go
Yeah.
for therapy and what that means, etc. So us taking it beyond the room is understanding also the politics of our country.
Yeah.
To say when it comes to access,
Access, yeah.
it becomes a bit of a challenge to
Yeah.
get people to be psychoeducated, to get people to have a sense of awareness. We also live in a time where TikTok is giving people impressions. There is
A
some
lot happening.
understanding,
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but we're not creating safe enough spaces to then start meaningful conversations. Yeah.
So what does your guys' work actually look like? Because of our platform Wisdom and Wellness, and I've been very vocal about going to therapy. I've had a lot of people come in my DM say, I actually can't wait to go to therapy when I make money. And that saddens me that not everybody has the opportunity to just say, actually, let me book my appointment. But it's a matter of, like you said, access, finances. So what does your community work look like? And also even for people who want to start going to therapy and seeing someone and having these conversations but has no money or access, where do they start?
So we are trying to make sure that we have a significant social media presence,
Yeah.
where we do kind of short snippets on some of the mental health stuff. And, some of the plans we have is kind of going to podcast spaces where we can have broader conversations. I think, having 4 women who are psychologists unpack is going to be quite meaningful.
Yeah.
But on our platforms, there is so much information for people to tap into.
Yeah.
We are available on like Instagram and Facebook. If you just search Buyisile Mental Health
You
Associates.
give information there. And then is there free, I've gotten some feedback that I know that I think government institutions do offer therapy, but apparently your situation has to be dire. So what does that actually look like for the people who may not have as dramatic situations? Do you think it's enough to just tap into social platforms, or are there other ways a person can deal, or almost self-help, if I can call it that?
We are very far behind as a country in terms of really prioritizing mental health. When you look at budget allocations, it's between 5 to 6% that goes to mental health.
No way.
Yet you need
Even after COVID.
Yet you need sane individuals to do work, right? So it then becomes this discord where it's like,
But
okay, how are
Yeah.
you going to manage that? But when it comes to bridging the gap, we still have significant work to do. And for now, social media platforms do
Is what you can
assist,
do, yeah.
in terms of helping people understand we all exist on a spectrum.
Yeah.
So sometimes, we think, I don't know what to call this. Sometimes it compounds with other things. So when you have the language, that's where we start to have meaningful conversations as well. Yeah.
True. I want to know, how did you actually get into psychology? Because I know even for you, it's not just your 4 years of university. You actually have to kind of have money to become a psychologist, because it's what, 7 years where you dedicate, right? And you're not getting paid in these 7 years.
No, you're studying. So you're studying, you're doing internships, some people are doing community service.
Yeah.
But in terms of the profession itself, I always say it's always pursued me. It's one of those things where I just surrendered to what was set before me. But it's been quite a meaningful journey for me. Backing back to grade 10 when I knew for sure.
How did you know? Tell me about that grade 10 journey.
There was a psychologist who used to do columns on newspapers.
Oh,
and I used to read and
them.
I was like, wow, this person gets to help people and tap into behavior and all of that. And I reached out to them because they would leave their details at the bottom. And I was like, what, I'm interested in being a psychologist. And she asked, where you at in life? I'm like, I'm in grade 10.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she was just like,
girl,
you have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But she kind of affirmed me. She told me if you're really sold out for it, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But you eventually get there. And, I had the privilege of, kind of interacting with her years later to say,
sure. Look,
hey, I actually made it.
Yeah.
I saw intention to action.
In terms of your personality, do you feel like your personality, your character, your value, your beliefs play a huge role in how you assist people, or is it something that you've kind of grown into?
My personality definitely does wonders for me.
Yeah.
But I also owe a lot to being the child who was placed in every department in the church.
Okay.
Children's ministry, youth ministry, young adults ministry, where you just get to work with people.
Yeah, that human interaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you kind of die to self to a great extent, because it's one of those, when you have to take up servanthood, there's nothing else that can compete with that.
Sure.
So even your own ego, you have to park that sometimes. And I think that's been quite monumental for me. But personality is one of those things. And I've always been followed by the sense of either being called church girl or Mamruti.
Really?
I'm telling you, it's like they people are like, you have an aura. And I'm like,
okay, maybe.
maybe,
Yeah.
But
I get it. You've got such I think a warmth. It makes it like I want to come tell you everything about my, like I want to just open up the minute I see you, from how I am. Do you want the Instagram answer, or do you want me to go all in?
Indeed.
But to just tap into our conversation with SOLAL, that obviously has taken such a huge role and space in mental health awareness. I want us to actually really define what mental health is and simplify it, because there's all these answers that we get, but in simple terms, for someone who keeps hearing this word, what is mental health?
Yeah. So in simple terms, how we can frame it is understanding that the mind and the body are connected.
Okay.
Because oftentimes, from like a bio model, we usually focus on physical health. So we know that, when I have an ailment here and a scar there, some people understand what repair actually looks like for their own bodies. If I pop a tablet, this is where it goes, this is how. So when we are talking about mental health, we're saying there is a connect, which means you must understand and be intrigued by your own mind to say what actually are the mechanics of thinking. So when we're thinking about mental health, we're saying there's brain chemistry, there's experiences that are stored in our minds. How do those kind of interact to help me achieve a sense of life and living? So mental health is basically just zoning in on what happens in the mechanics of the mind.
So to break it down, mental health does not equate to depression.
No, certainly not. It is so, mental health is even being well.
Yeah.
So, and what does that take?
Yeah.
In terms of your own resilience, your own internal resources, etc.
So what does the mental health of being well look like personally for you, or for a client that you see, actually you're mentally well now? What does that look like?
For me, it's been serenity. I'm sure some of us are quite familiar with the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity.
Yes.
To accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference, what I can and cannot change. That's been my modus operandi. It's like when things come my way, I'm like, can I or can I not change this? And, what would it take? And if I cannot change it, then it means I must literally surrender.
Yeah,
to
just
say,
like,
okay,
I let
let
go.
it play out, because we all understand that everything matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a client that you've gone through a journey with, is it the same thing when you can start seeing that they have an ability to say, actually, I cannot change this, I can change this?
Yeah. So when we think of therapy, I've had to actually say to some clients, we need to almost shift the dynamics of how we understand healing. So when people come in and they're like, what are your therapeutic goals? It's like, I want to find healing. And the first thing I say is, let's rather find insight.
Okay.
Because when we heal, the understanding is that physical.
Yeah.
I've closed it. It's not going
Yeah,
to. But
yeah.
when we have insight, it just looks different with time.
Sure.
So when you kind of sit with that, it's like, okay, so when it rears its head again, it's not to say I haven't done the work. Oh, absolutely, you have done the work. But it evolves with you and it has different meanings through time. So when clients come in and they're like, I want to seek out healing, I'm like, let's seek out insight.
Sure.
So
Let's
that,
know what's actually going on.
and to actually appreciate that with time, you will change your mind about how you approach the situation.
Sure. Okay, I want to actually, one of the focuses I wanted us to zone into in our conversation is postpartum depression, which was the reason why I have this podcast, the reason why I have Wisdom and Wellness. And I couldn't recognize it. But I had a speaking engagement recently where I was just sharing why pregnancy was so difficult for me and postpartum depression. And one of the things was that my husband got to continue with his life and I couldn't, right? And everything changed for me. And I get so many women coming, and they might not have got postpartum depressions, but I can almost recognize the signs from the things that they say, which are things I used to say to myself. Within a month, I wish I could be as active, exercise as much, or look better, or feel better, or my baby cries so much. And so I want us to really go into postpartum depression. Firstly, does every woman experience postpartum depression? And secondly, what is also postpartum depression? Because I really want us to break down terms today, to simplify everything.
Yeah. So when we start the conversation is that, we've got kind of a diagnostic manual. So things change around a lot, but it's now called peripartum.
Okay.
Yeah. So
didn't know. So now are we done with postpartum? Is it a new word or are we just phasing it out? What's happening?
It's a new word that appreciates that it can actually start at conception.
Okay.
Yes. As opposed to post, because then a lot of women are feeling conflicted to say, even during the process, I'm really out of it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to how many women experience it, I want us to really appreciate that everyone sits on a spectrum. So from ease to distress, everyone kind of finds their place there. So sometimes we're kind of hung up on the 2 out of 8 and all of that, but it's all good.
Yeah.
It's also, I guess, sobers us up in terms of understanding just the gravitas of mental health. But when we look at peripartum or postpartum depression, it's the understanding that one, hormonally and chemically, a lot is happening for you as you embrace carrying this new life. But beyond just what is happening for the individual, there are a lot of psychosocial factors, a lot of socioeconomic considerations that really place a burden on mental health during that time. It's one of those things that upon discovery, others are excited. Others are like, oh no, what does this actually mean? Others were not even planning to have a child. It's like,
should I be happy? Should I be sad?
Exactly. Yeah. But there's always that kind of anxiety for, what does this mean for me? Because we know that reproductive and fertility challenges for women are vast and very broad. And what does it mean to carry? What does it mean to journey along the way and sit with the possibility of, part of reproductive health is that sometimes women don't even see their pregnancies through. So you sit with all of this awareness whilst your body is pumping hormones. And I mean, every woman has their own PMS story. add pregnancy in
Yeah.
there and you've taken it to another level. Yeah.
It's actually crazy the changes that we experience, and you've mentioned a lot about the psychological, but then how do now the physical changes affect us? Because personally I think the physical changes affected me the most. I mean, for me, it was extremely traumatic to have to just continue being on camera, knowing that I've gone 3 shades darker than I'm supposed to be. My nose is times 10 bigger. My foot has gone up 2 sides. It was very traumatic, and I had to downplay it because I'm being vain. You know? So I want us to talk about how much does the physical aspect really interfere or challenge our mental health during this pregnancy stage?
Women are rated according to how they look. Unfortunately, society has put us in that position. So when it comes to body image issues, we've got body dysmorphic disorder, again,
I actually
spectrum.
want to talk about that.
Again, spectrum. Some days are better than others, where you fit into this outfit, you're like, oh, and you're frustrated now because you have to iron another one, and it's like, I think I'm too big, I think I'm, but when it comes to the physical changes, it's one of those things where, again, you must embrace a body you do not know.
Ish.
And you're embracing a body
you do not know.
Absolutely. And it's not by diet or lifestyle issues. You're embracing life, and you cannot tell where it's going to go. It's not like, I'm going to cut down on McD's and go to the gym. You absolutely cannot tell how your body will carry for that child.
Sure. And it really affects our thinking process.
It
Nah?
does, yeah.
So what are the ways family or even ourselves, if you don't have support, but if you have your partner, what are the ways you can identify that this person actually needs to seek help? Because they're saying, okay, I just had a baby. Obviously I'm not myself, I'm not sleeping. And then there's actually a person really changing. And I think there's a thin line. So how do we identify that, no, special attention has to be given, or this is when you need to start seeking help? Or actually, should women just all seek help after having a child?
All of them. I think everyone must just understand that a big life event is happening.
Yeah.
And therefore, we
downplay it a lot.
Yeah, whether you feel mentally strong or not, you are transitioning. So many things are having to transition. And if you come into a place of care, or even have a community of other women around you who've gone through it, and you're sharing the experience, it holds space for you. But when it comes to partners, we cannot emphasize compassion enough.
Yeah.
Because when you're compassionate towards your partner, you actually take it upon yourself to bear witness with them for what is happening in their lives. But if as a partner you're just there for the moments in between, and you're like, I think you're gaining this, and I think you're losing that, and I think you're irritable for this, then you have not committed to actually walking this journey with them.
Sure.
You're waiting at the finish line, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So when we look at what it means to support, firstly, we need to understand that we have to perceive the person that is going through this journey, which means you have to ask yourself, what do you need? What do you feel? Is today a good day? Is today a difficult day? What are you sitting with? What are your vulnerabilities? What are your insecurities?
Yeah.
And, when it comes to couple relationships and intimacy, it looks different.
Very.
Across the spectrum. And, after all is said and done, we must still maintain the glory of being naked and unashamed with the people that we love. So it's one of those things where we really cannot emphasize enough grace and compassion that's needed in that relationship dynamic.
I like how you touched on every woman should seek help, but you didn't only limit it to professional help. You spoke about community, which I think we've kind of really lost in this stage, and it's showing in everything that's happening. Do you do any couple counseling? Yes, so you do. So I know, and this is one of the things my mom said to me after having my first child, after having children, or during that pregnancy and after birth stage, it can be, let me not generalize, it can be the hardest time of your marriage and your relationship. And we personally experienced it, some friends experienced it, and I've also taken note that most couples will be happy for a good 8 years, and then here comes a baby, and all of a sudden they have the relationship just does not work anymore. What, as a counselor and someone who sits with couples, what is your general almost outlook on that? Why do you think that is? What's the shift that actually happens?
So in psychology, we understand it as introducing the third.
Introducing the third. Okay.
Yeah. So when you establish a relationship, it's just the two of you.
Yeah.
So it's, it's just the two of you. You are having a different outlook, really centered around just you and I. And then you introduce the third, which then changes the dynamic completely of the relationship. And it therefore means that there's attention that's now given to the third. There is time and effort and investment. There's also unconditional regard of another person outside of yourself that you're witnessing your partner pour into this baby.
Why is this all sounding like jealousy?
It's a fine line. It's a very, very fine
Yeah.
line. So we're very territorial as human beings. And and the thing about it is that the third is appreciated in children. It's also appreciated in work.
Yeah.
When someone now has to work more hours.
Yeah.
It's the sense that there is now more than one person or one thing that has your attention. And the thing about children is that, oh my goodness.
All the attention.
You will bulldoze anything and anyone for your kids. And it's one of those things where the dynamic just changes completely.
Let me put you on the spot. Is it a man problem or is it a woman problem? Can women do better in including their partners during pregnancy, or can men do better in actually just fitting themselves in there because the woman is already going through enough?
It's a relationship virtue problem. So
I need you to pick a side.
The thing is, if I pick a side, I'm ultimately also disregarding the people who are really trying their best.
Absolutely.
So if I say it's a relational problem, it's understanding that when you come into a relationship, we're two individuals trying to figure out a relationship.
Yeah.
So what we give to that relationship in terms of the virtue is what matters. So if we're both selfless and understanding that we're both going through this for the benefit of expansion and legacy and all of that, it looks different for us in terms of how we tend to each other.
And a big thank you to SOLAL for opening up this conversation and making sure that we partake and making sure that people understand what mental health actually means. And remember, mental health does not mean depression. It's a huge conversation that you can tap into. You can follow Buyisile. What's your handle?
Buyisile Mncina on Instagram.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's your personal page though, right?
I'm going to move to a professional one.
Okay, she's moving to a professional one.
Do
Follow us also on Instagram and do follow SOLAL for more conversations around mental health. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join our membership. And that's it from me, Mpumila Dwaba. That's a wrap. Whee! Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope it was impactful and that you enjoyed it. To check out the full episode, all you have to do is become a Wisdom and Wellness member by clicking the join button. If not, you're more than welcome to catch the full audio version on any of your podcast platforms. Thank you for watching and thank you for being a Wisdom and Wellness member.